Who among us has never heard of the Trojan War? That mythical epic immortalized by the great Greek poet Homer in his literary masterpiece, the Iliad. Despite the passage of more than 3,000 years, the epic of humans and gods in the Trojan War continues to occupy the throne of immortal historical epics, igniting the imagination of writers, filmmakers, and artists, and raising many questions and controversies about it. Was that epic a real historical event? Or was it one of the Greek myths? Is there really a city called Troy? In our documentary film, we will take you on a journey to the distant past, to the ancient Greek civilization, where one of the most important mythical wars that has bewildered the minds and transmitted by the generations over those long centuries stay with us. At first, we must note that the only source for the story of the Trojan War that took place in the late Bronze Age between Greece and the Kingdom of Troy is the Iliad, which is attributed to the Greek poet Homer. In the ancient Greek civilization, the Greeks had a god for everything. There is a god of war, a god of peace, a god of love, and a god of beauty. According to what was mentioned in the Iliad poem about the Trojan War, the chief goddess, Zeus, during a wedding ceremony that brought him together with the rest of the gods threw an apple written on it, for the most beautiful. And the purpose of that was to reduce the increasing population on Earth by provoking fighting between them. And indeed, throwing the apple caused a conflict between Hera, the wife of Zeus Athena, the goddess of war, and Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty. Each one wants the apple for her as a mean of resolving the conflict between the three gods. Zeus suggested seeking refuge to Paris, the prince of Troy, who was famous for his handsomeness. Indeed, the three of them headed to the mountains of Ida, where Paris resides, as for the reason for his stay there, according to what was reported that Paris's mother, Queen Hecuba, dreamed before his birth, that she would give birth to a flaming torch, and the fortune-teller Asacus interpreted that dream that the newborn would bring destruction to Troy. So King Priam, the father of Paris, handed him over to the shepherd Aguilos to kill him. But the shepherd could not do that, so he left him to die of hunger. And after 9 days he returned to check him, and found him alive, suckled and protected by a bear. So he thought it was a message from heaven, so he carried the child to his house and raised him as his son. Returning to the three women, each of them tried to lure Paris to make him say that she is the most beautiful. It is said that Hera promised him the great king. Athena promised him that he would not lose a war that he would enter, and Aphrodite promised him that he would marry the most beautiful woman on earth, so that Paris finally chose Aphrodite, and she got the apple. That ruling was the beginning of a fierce war between Greece and the kingdom of Troy. So by Aphrodite's planning, Paris returned to Troy and fell in love with the wife of the king of Sparta, Menelaus, called Helena, who was said to be the most beautiful woman on earth. And according to the Greek story, Helena was kidnapped and taken to Troy. And there is another story that says that Helena, in turn, had fallen in love with Paris and fled with him to Troy. King Menelaus went mad and asked Troy to return Helena to Greece. But King Priam, Paris's father, refused to do so, which provoked the Greeks and declared war on the kingdom of Troy. The Greek army went out to besiege Troy, but the impenetrable walls of the city stood as a barrier between them and their breaking in for 10 full years. And after many tragedies and horrors caused by the war, it was necessary to resort to deception. So the Greeks made a huge wooden horse and placed it outside the gates of Troy as a surrender gift to the Trojans, while the horse was full of Greek warriors without the knowledge of the Trojans, and they swallowed the bait to fall into the Greeks' trap. What increased the plot that they saw the Greeks withdraw, so they opened the city gates and pulled the horse inside, and at night the Greek soldiers sneaked out of the horse, led by Odysseus, looting the city and killing its men, while they took the women and children as slaves, and thus Troy fell. The Trojan War, which was 10 years mentioned in the Iliad, inflamed the imagination of many people, especially with linking Homer, the Trojan, to gold and wealth. The phrase, "who finds Trojan finds gold," has appeared, and this is what tempted treasure hunters. So many campaigns began to search for the city of Troy, And one of the most famous of those campaigns is the campaign led by a German archaeologist named Heinrich Schliemann in the 19th century to search for the treasures of Troy. And this man was obsessed with the Iliad and believed in everything in it. Indeed, Schliemann arrived in the year 1868 AD to northwestern Turkey, where the alleged tomb of Achilles, one of Troy's story's heroes. And there he began digging, hoping that he might find a clue that would lead him to Troy. And an amazing surprise was waiting for him as he found a huge box containing thousands of gold, silver, and bronze pieces. So he smuggled the treasure in a canoe and returned it to Greece, where his wife's hometown is, according to Schlemmann's story. Schliemann believed that the treasure belonged to King Priam, the ruler of Troy city, but scholars denied that and said that this treasure dates back more than 1,000 years before Troy to enter Schliemann on that date by finding a lost civilization that aged more than 4,000 years old. He found 9 historical cities on top of each other for over nearly 4,500 years, including Troy, where it was one of the cities that Schliemann found, as there was evidence of a fire outbreak in that area in the distant past, in addition to a number of arrowheads dating back to the period when Herodotus said that it had witnessed the occurrence of the Trojan War, indicating that it was a battlefield in the past, and thus Schliemann was able to prove that Trojan was indeed a real city. But what about the Trojan War? Was it real and Homer's formulated it in his way for the gods to interfere in the story? Or is it just a popular myth? In fact, opinions have differed greatly about that epic, as there are those who believe that it is a true story that Homer's hand interfered to formulate it in this unique way. And on top are those ancient Greeks who believed that this war had already taken place, and it was not just a story, considering it as a part of their history. The Iliad also described events and facts that it is difficult to believe that what is being narrated is not based on the testimonies of people who witnessed the war with their own eyes. In addition to inscriptions and writings of the Hittites talking about a dispute over Troy. Although all of these discoveries are not conclusive evidence on the occurrence of the Trojan War, however, it was sufficient for those who believed that the Trojan War had already occurred. On the other hand, there are those who doubted that whole story, as many of the heroes are descendants of gods who were interfering in the course of events in an unbelievable way. It is also difficult to imagine the outbreak of a war on this large scale that was described by the Iliad, especially that siege that lasted 10 full years on Troy. As archaeologists discovered that Troy was limited in size and crowded with its people, while the most powerful cities could have survived for only a few months and not 10 full years. Thus, the issue of the Trojan War has not been resolved, but whether the Trojan War was inspired by a war that broke out in the past or was just a fictional myth. This historical epic is the largest example of the espionage world in ancient Greek mythology, and it is exemplified to this day in the art of military deception and the ability to infiltrate behind enemy lines. And you, dear viewer, do you really believe that the Trojan War took place, or is it just a popular myth? Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel.